Hey everybody, and very recently I reached 300 subscribers. Thank you all so much, and with that, you naturally expect me to go on some big hairball time travel adventure for these milestone specials. Well, the last couple of times I did that, the whole universe nearly collapsed on itself, and the world was briefly enslaved by fax machines. So because of these, I'm now under curfew and have my time travel abilities temporarily taken away from me. And it's a shame too, because I considered using my time travel abilities for good by giving David Zaslaw's parents some condoms just so he could be watching Coyote vs. Acme right now. Now what to do to keep me from going insane? I already reviewed the Super Mario Bros. Movie. I could always catch up on my backlog. And come to think of it, the last Disney movie I reviewed was The Rescuers Down Under. You know what that means? I can finally get to the good movies now! After Walt's passing during the Jungle Book's development came the Bronze Age, and when looking back at the films from this era, it was safe to say that a Disney without Walt took some getting used to. But in 1988, Who Framed Roger Rabbit via Disney's other studio Touchstone Pictures revived interest in theatrical animation, leading to The Little Mermaid's release a year later, kickstarting the Disney Renaissance, often hailed as the studio's best era. Now, I already covered some films from this era, those being The Death of Society and a sequel that nobody asked for, and believe me, we have more than enough of those. Whereas the rest, I quickly glanced over during my 90s animation video and why I thought that was the media's greatest decade. So today, we're gonna look at the rest of the Renaissance and see if they were what Disney needed after the Bronze Age, and see if my comments from that 2-year-old video didn't make me look like a dirty liar. The first film we're going to be looking at is Beauty and the Beast, where I truly think was where the Renaissance started. But first... better safe than sorry. Hey look, it's Bambi's mother! We begin this tale as old as time with a stained glass backstory of a small prince in a faraway castle where one day a beggar with a rose pops by asking for shelter, with the prince refusing to let her in for her looks. She reveals to be a beautiful enchantress and curses the prince by turning him into a beast and has to find true love before the rose's petals fall down. God only knows what he got up to during puberty. We cut our leading lady Belle in a small town and gets along with everyone in song, and also happens to be a massive bookworm. We also see our villain Gaston alongside his pal LeFou, who wants to marry Belle. She heads back home to see her father Maurice, inventing a device for making firewood. Maurice then heads out to the forest for a competition and gets lost, leading his horse to run off, and Maurice ending up at a castle where he meets some talking household objects like Lumiere, Cogsworth, and Miss Potts and Chip, who take him in, and we soon find out that this is Beast's castle, who is infuriated by Maurice's presence, to put it lightly, and takes him to the torture room for trespassing. Back at home, Gaston sets up a wedding and pops over to Belle proposing to her, with her saying no, and Gaston getting humiliated. We then learn that Belle wants more excitement out of life, and gets the chance as Maurice's horse comes home and both head out to the castle to find her father in the dungeon. She finally meets Beast and offers to take Maurice's place as prisoner, letting him free. Realizing that she could be the one to break the curse, Beast takes Belle to a fancier chamber, and she befriends the likes of Lumiere, Miss Potts, Chip, and a talking wardrobe. Meanwhile, Beast is advised to control his temper if he wants Belle to fall for him breaking the curse, after forcing her to come dine with him. In the village, Gaston feels depressed after his failed proposal to Belle, which leads to the song Gaston helping him cheer up. And memes aside, this is a pretty fun song. No one makes fun meme material like Gaston. We also see Maurice in the tavern, who tries to warn everyone about the beast who captured Belle. Whilst everyone thinks he's crazy, Gaston starts to come up with a plan to win the heart of Taco Bell. Over in the castle, Belle refuses to dine with Beast, making him leave her to starve. But Lumiere and co set up a dinner just for her with the song Be Our Guest. No. A great flashy sequence I'm surprised played this late into the film. I always assumed it played once Belle entered the castle, but hey ho. Afterwards, she roams around the castle, entering a forbidden section where she learns the truth about the beast, which infuriates him, leading Belle to head out to the castle back home. Just as she makes it to the woods, she encounters some vicious wolves, but Beast comes in to save her whilst taking a hit, with Belle taking him back to the castle to look after him. Back in the village, Gaston meets up with the local asylum seeker, bribing him to throw Maurice there unless Belle marries him.
No one makes convincing threats like Gaston.
Just as Maurice heads back out to the woods to save Belle, Gaston puts LeFou on watch for Belle and her father at their house. In the castle, Beast shows Belle his library, leading to a sequence of the two falling for each other and Lumiere, Cogsworth, and Miss Potts gaining hope Belle will break the curse. At night comes the famous ballroom sequence where Beast and Belle dress up and waltz together. And I had to say, this is one of the greatest achievements I've ever seen in animation. When I saw this in cinemas not too long ago, it took my breath away. The combination of the 2D characters and 3D ballroom is seamless, it has a nice song playing throughout. Really hard to think this was made in 1991, especially when most computers at the time could only run this. Not too long afterwards, Beast and Belle sit outside discussing their feelings, and Beast is now in love with Belle, and he takes her up to his quarters, showing her a mirror that can reveal whatever you want to see in the outside world.
Man, for a fairy tale, this curse was quite ahead of its time.
Belle asks to see her father, only to see him falling ill in the woods. Beast gives his blessing for Belle to leave, even taking the mirror with her and go out to save him, shocking everyone back at the castle. Pretty neat indicator for how far Beast's character has come, and is also a good breather from the typical third act argument. You know the ones. Maurice is glad to see Belle again, and also come across Chip, who snuck in Belle's bag. However, the asylum seeker pops by to take Maurice in, alongside Gaston and everyone in town showing up. Maurice keeps on trying to explain the Beast, with everyone still thinking he's crazy. Belle asks Gaston to stop, but only agrees if she marries him. She says no, and even shows everyone the Beast through the mirror, assuring them he's not dangerous, leading Gaston to rile the town to go to the castle and kill the Beast in song. With lyrics that sadly reflected the world the film's lyricist Howard Ashman was living in at the time, who months before the film's release, tragically passed away from AIDS, with the film being dedicated in his memory and work on this film and The Little Mermaid. And despite everything I said about the latter, Howard helped steer Disney into what it is today, and that will certainly not be forgotten. And thankfully this wouldn't be his last film, as he did some work on Aladdin and its songs prior to his death. Belle and Maurice are locked up in their basement, but Chip comes in to bust them out using Maurice's firewood contraption from earlier. Gaston and the townsfolk make it to the castle as he heads out to find Beast, and the rest take on the house objects fighting back, with the townsfolk losing in a hilarious spectacle. Gaston finds a depressed Beast and shoots an arrow taking him on, with Beast fighting back. Just as Belle makes it back, Gaston stabs Beast, but slips off the rooftop falling to his doom, becoming this year's winner of the Nobel Prize.
No one falls off to their death from a great height like Gaston.
Belle comforts Beast, and as he passes on, Belle finally confesses her love for him, which makes him become human again and restore the castle.
Turn back, turn back, turn back, turn back, turn back, turn.
Lumiere, Cogsworth, Miss Potts, and Chip, among everyone else in the castle, also transform, and the internet was never the same ever since. With the castle returned to its former glory, Beast and Belle live happily ever after.
Okay, this movie was pretty excellent.
Amazing storytelling, beautiful animation, lovable characters, great songs, seamless pacing, enough appeal for everyone to enjoy this movie, one hell of a good villain subverting stereotypes, the list goes on. In fact, this is the first of 3 animated movies to have ever been nominated for the Academy Award of Best Picture, and after watching it, I can absolutely see as to why. So with that, Beauty and the Beast is easily one of the finest films Disney has ever made. Aladdin's next, and after a sequence of seeing an Arabian desert and glimpse of Agrabah, we meet a vendor who begins telling the audience a story of a magic lamp, where we cut to a vizier named Jafar and his pet parrot Iago in a desert, where a beggar gives him a part of a scarab beetle treasure, which awakens the Cave of Wonders, where they're told to find a diamond in the rough. We then meet a street rat named Aladdin and pet monkey Abu, who steal to survive with a fun song, and also learn he has a heart giving his bread to kids, and has aspirations of living in the palace. We also get a glimpse of the palace with the Sultan wanting to find his daughter Jasmine a suitor, but doesn't want to marry them and be her own free woman, just rejecting Prince Ahmed.
No one remembers Ahmed.
Need to see princesses get more personality and to find goals in these movies. Meanwhile, Jafar and Iago, who in their hideout I'm surprised no one in the palace has noticed yet, use the Sultan's ring to discover their diamond in the rough, Aladdin. Later at night, Jasmine runs away and heads into town the next day, bumping into Aladdin as she steals from a vendor, with the two getting acquainted with each other and sharing their struggles, with Aladdin being a street rat and Jasmine's predetermined future of getting married to a suitor.
Should I get out the cootie armor just in case?
Aladdin then gets captured by order of Jafar, obsessing Jasmine. Aladdin is in a dungeon and comes across Jafar disguised as an old beggar who takes him and Abu to the Cave of Wonders for him to find a magic lamp. Inside they come across vast treasures and a magic carpet, which I don't know if it was animated with CGI or traditional hand-drawn. Either way, it still looks great today, and guides the two to the magic lamp. Just as Aladdin picks up the lamp, Abu picks the wrong treasure, leading the cave to crumble down, with Aladdin on the carpet making his way out in an exciting chase sequence that wouldn't be out of place in a Star Wars movie. Aladdin barely reaches the mouth and gives the beggar the lamp and is thrown back into the cave to rot. It soon turns out that Abu did a switcheroo with the lamp, and as Aladdin rubs it, soon meets a powerful genie voiced by Robin Williams, who introduces himself to Aladdin, who can grant 3 wishes under certain conditions, leading to a fun musical sequence. And before we move on, we all know Robin was great here, but I also have to give props to the genie's animators, and especially Eric Goldberg for bringing him to life, perfectly complementing the great comedian and the references this guy makes. I already loved these growing up as a kid, and even knowing some of these references today still gives me a good chuckle. This guy has appeal. The genie lets Aladdin and Abu out to the cave and head to an oasis where Aladdin and the genie talk on what wishes he can make, and learns that the genie's wish is to be free and promises to make sure that would be his last wish. Wanting to win Jasmine's heart, Aladdin wishes to become a prince. The genie does so, and even goes all out, turning Abu into an elephant and giving Aladdin a massive ensemble. Back in the palace, the Sultan tells off Jafar for taking in Aladdin, who then comes up with the idea that he'll be Jasmine's suitor if all else fails. Prince Ali and the genie make a strong entrance to Agrabah in a fun song, heading to the palace, lying to and impressing the Sultan, to Jafar's annoyance, and even Jasmine, further telling them she isn't a prize to be won. At night, he heads up to Jasmine with the magic carpet, courting her with help from the genie. Jasmine soon starts to figure out that he's the same person as the street rat she encountered when running away. She and Aladdin then take a globe-trotting magic carpet ride with the song A Whole New World. Another fantastic musical number in the Disney library with creative visuals and landscapes. Jasmine then finds out that Prince Ali was the street rat, and Aladdin lies to her, saying that the street rat was one of his servants.
Yeah, and my uncle works at Nintendo.
Aladdin takes Jasmine home, and the carpet makes the two kiss, with Jasmine now falling for him. Aladdin then gets taken by Jafar's guards and throws him and the lamp hidden in his hat into the ocean. The genie, concerned for Aladdin, uses up one of his 2 remaining wishes to save him. Back at the palace, Jasmine has finally chosen a suitor, that being Prince Ali, shocking Jafar and even Aladdin, who grows concerned about Jasmine and the Sultan finding out his true colors. With 1 wish left, the genie asks Aladdin if he could free him, but because he's now Jasmine's suitor, he still needs him around, disappointing him. Iago tricks Aladdin and Jasmine's voice away from the lamp as he steals it and brings it to Jafar, who is now the genie's new master. At a ceremony with Jasmine announcing her new suitor, Jafar interrupts and reveals to everyone who Prince Ali truly is, becoming the new Sultan and even all-powerful sorcerer, while sending Aladdin and Abu to a frozen wasteland. Aladdin then finds the carpet underneath some debris and heads back to the palace to set things right. At the palace, Jafar has everyone under his control against their will, and Aladdin sneaks in to save them. After everyone stalls the sorcerer, he soon discovers Aladdin's presence and takes him on, with Jasmine even being trapped in an hourglass with sand pouring, frightening her.
I don't blame you, Jasmine. It's coarse, rough, irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Jafar then turns into a snake to finish out the street rat, who suggests that he should become an all-powerful genie, much to everyone's shock, as Jafar uses his final wish for the genie to become one. And now that he has that wish fulfilled, he's sent into a tiny land to live in, and is thrown far away to the desert. That was honestly a pretty smart move from Aladdin's end. Now that everything's back to normal, Aladdin comes clean to Jasmine about his true self. Yet she still loves him regardless, leading the Sultan to change the law to have her marry whoever she wants. And Aladdin uses his final wish for the genie to give him his freedom. The genie is finally free, and Aladdin and Jasmine live happily ever after. Another excellent addition to the Disney library. Much like Beauty and the Beast, the film has great animation, stellar musical numbers, fantastic characters, fluid pacing, badass villain, and it's hilarious as all hell. I would say that those two movies were on equal grounds, but Robin Williams' performance as the genie slightly pushes it over for me. Arguably the greatest voice performance in an animated feature length, which makes Aladdin one of the studio's funniest, most heartfelt, and enjoyable films yet. Let's face it, they'll never top this movie. And it's already off to an incredible start with the famous Circle of Life sequence, with various animals, both big and small, across the land, heading to Pride Rock to witness the birth of the future King Simba, with Rafiki holding him up for everyone to see. Let me ask you something. How is this movie 30 years old? No wonder this became as widespread and popular as it did, with stunning animation, world building, and a great song to boot. This is possibly the best opening to an animated movie. That and the Lego Batman movie. Afterwards, we meet Mufasa's brother Scar, who feels depressed about the birth of Mufasa and Sarabi's son Simba, killing his chance of becoming king. Mufasa and Zazu scold him for missing the ceremony, with Scar responding like a bratty drama queen. We finally meet Simba excited to learn about what it's like to be king, with Mufasa teaching him about the pride lands they rule and responsibilities a king has to face. After some fun time together, Mufasa heads out to take care of some business, with Zazu taking Simba home. At Pride Rock, Simba brags to Scar about becoming king, and Scar intrigues him by slipping out info about a nearby elephant graveyard. Simba tells his friend Nala about the opportunity, and both head out with Zazu, leading them to the waterhole, which leads them to a musical number showing how excited Simba is of becoming king. And it's as much a vibrant and colorful sequence as it is an infuriating level in the SNES tie-in game. As the song ends, Simba and Nala lose Zazu heading to the graveyard. As Zazu catches up, they all encounter some hyenas chasing them down, and as they reach a dead end, Mufasa saves them in the nick of time and is cross with Simba for disobeying him. When heading home, Mufasa discussing with Simba his fears of losing him in a powerful scene showing that even kings can get scared, and the two quickly reconciling with Mufasa telling Simba that up in the starry sky, the past kings look down on them, further proving why Mufasa is one of the greatest parental figures I've ever seen in a movie. Back at the elephant graveyard, Scar and the hyenas talk out how he can be king and rule Pride Rock, leading them to plan on killing Mufasa and Simba to do it, with the song Be Prepared. Probably the best villain song in a Disney movie. The scenery is striking, it's got a good beat to it, and fits Scar's motivations perfectly. The next day, Scar takes Simba to a gorge, insisting him on roaring like his father. Up a hill, the hyenas begin to chase the wildebeest there, with them coming down the gorge through a stampede. And ladies and gentlemen, Sulphur Keys. Scar heads out to Mufasa and Zazu to tell them about the stampede Simba's in, with them coming down, and Mufasa heading into the stampede itself, saving Simba. One of the most tense and nail-biting sequences in all of animation. Even after seeing this film multiple times, it still has me on the edge of my seat. While Simba makes it out, Mufasa struggles to get out, but as he reaches Scar, he betrays Mufasa and throws him into the stampede with Simba watching. As the stampede clears, Simba heads up to Mufasa's corpse and tries to wake him up. Not only is this one of the most chilling and harrowing moments in cinema history, but it's also one of the most powerful portrayals of death as well. With Simba feeling responsible for causing the stampede, Scar tells him off and suggests to run away and never return. Simba does so, and Scar tells the hyenas to kill him. The hyenas chase Simba down the gorge, but the cub runs far away, with the hyenas letting him go out to die. Back at Pride Rock, Scar alongside the lionesses mourn the loss of Mufasa and Simba, and announces his new reign as king, and lets hyenas also come too, eventually disheartening Rafiki.
Man, this movie doesn't f*** around.
Scar, the villain, finally got what he wanted. Something rarely done in animated movies prior. Really showing how much of a well-written and intimidating villain he truly is. There were rating warnings made because of him, and with that, I can't help but respect that. Out in the desert, Simba is lying still exhausted, and just as some vultures cut down on him, a meerkat and warthog named Timon and Pumbaa come in to save him and take the cow to an oasis. Simba feels guilty about the stampede, and Timon and Pumbaa then raise him as their own, teaching him the joys of jungle life and phrase Hakuna Matata, which means no worries. Simba then grows up with the two and live their happy days with an incredibly nice and catchy song, helping cheer up the audience after one of the most tense and riskiest scenes in an animated movie up to that point. Meanwhile, over in Pride Rock, things look bleak under Scar's rule, with everyone starving and thirsty, Zazu stuck in a ribcage, and to his inconvenience, everyone, including the hyenas, missing how things were when Mufasa was alive. You really didn't think this plan through, did you, Scar? Over in the jungle one night, Simba, Timon, and Pumbaa look up at the stars as Simba tells them about the great kings looking down Mufasa once told him. Timon and Pumbaa laugh it off, leaving Simba deflated. When lying down, some wind blows over some of his hair over the land.
Should I dare question the logic in that?
It comes to Rafiki, who is overjoyed to find out that Simba is still alive. Nala is sent out to find him, and after briefly chasing Pumbaa, finally reunites with Simba, happy to see each other again. Timon then grows concerned as he and Pumbaa realize that Simba and Nala are falling in love, leading to the song Can You Feel the Love Tonight?
No.
Another great song with the two lions getting close together and proceeding to have sex in a children's movie. Later on, Nala asks why Simba ran away, and worried that Nala will find out about what happened in the stampede, he doesn't answer her, and Nala tells him about how downhill Pride Rock went with Scar's reign. This infuriates Simba, who then begins to question what his father told him all those years ago. He then finds and follows Rafiki, who reveals that Mufasa lives within him. The sky then forms into a spirit of Mufasa, who tells Simba that he forgot who he was and tells him to remember himself as his final piece of guidance. Rafiki also teaches Simba to learn from his past mistakes, which finally convinces him to return to the Pride Lands and face off Scar. After a long trek throughout the land, he makes it home, with Nala, Timon, and Pumbaa catching up. They are devastated to see what has happened, and plan out how to sneak in, with Timon and Pumbaa distracting the hyenas in fun fashion with a hula and everything. The lionesses tell Scar that they plan to leave the Pride Lands given the lack of food and water, but Scar argues in saying, "Oh no, we can't leave Pride Rock, all my stuff is here." But Simba finally arrives to face up Scar and tells everyone the truth about him causing Mufasa's death, disheartening everyone including Nala and his mother Sarabi. Scar declares him guilty, and as fire hits Pride Rock, Simba is thrown on the ledge, and Scar tells Simba what actually happened during the stampede, enraging Simba, forcing him to tell everyone the truth. The lionesses take on the hyenas, alongside Rafiki tagging in, Timon and Pumbaa busting out Zazu, and Simba heading out to take on Scar once and for all in an exciting and climactic battle, even if somebody had too much fun putting it in slow motion. Simba then defeats Scar, kicking him off Pride Rock, and the hyenas then finish the job after Scar briefly slipped out how they were responsible for the stampede in defense. Rain pours onto Pride Rock as Simba finally becomes king and walks up Pride Rock and then roaring alongside the lionesses. Just describing this scene gives me shivers. The Pride Lands finally return to normal as all the animals come to celebrate the birth of Simba and Nala's daughter, continuing the circle of life. Another home run for Disney. Like, what needs to be said about this movie that hasn't been said already? Amazing and lovable characters, jaw-dropping animation, excellent songs, breathtaking music, and masterful storytelling. As well as taking then unheard of risks at the time to great success and a perfect balance in terms of emotion. Not to mention, it's got something for everybody with fun, enjoyable moments for kids, and strong, powerful themes and story beats that could still resonate with adults. This film has universal appeal. And with that, it is undeniably the greatest film Walt Disney Animation Studios has ever made. Hell, it might even be the greatest animated movie ever made. At least not involving Lego, of course. Okay, now for Pocahontas, and believe it or not, The Lion King was actually a side project for Disney made by a smaller team. Surprising, especially with the amount of big people involved in it. And if that was such a good film, then this one should be amazing, right? It's not. We start in England as a ship is about to set sail to the New World, with Captain John Smith and Governor Ratcliffe leading the expedition, alongside a young man named Thomas voiced by Christian Bale, who would be later best known as Batman in the Dark Knight trilogy. One pointless in hindsight storm sequence later, we cut to the New World getting acquainted with the local indigenous people, and soon Pocahontas with her animal friends Miko and Flint, who most likely exist for merchandising, and human friend. She soon learns from her father that she will be married to Kocoum, and she's like, no thanks. She then heads to a river whilst toying with her fate and asks a wise grandmother tree what to do. Yeah, remember that from the history books? Anyhow, she suggests following the wind. The Brits arrive bamboozling the indigenous people who analyze them in case they prove as a threat. As John begins exploring the land whilst meeting Miko and Flint, and Governor Ratcliffe leading his men to dig out the land to find some gold. Miko then heads into the ship and meets Ratcliffe's pet dog Percy. And get settled in for these two, cause we'll be seeing their feud a lot in this movie. I guess to throw the kids a bone or something. Pocahontas then follows John, soon meeting each other. She briefly makes a run for it, but follows the wind to be with John getting to know each other. Back with Ratcliffe, the indigenous people analyze the white men, who then get attacked by them, with one of them being seriously wounded, and Thomas being a wussy little wimp with a shooting stick. This leads the indigenous people to call their brother tribe to help fend off the white men. Meanwhile, Pocahontas teaches John about her culture before showing him around the forest singing Colors of the Wind. Probably the only true highlight of this movie. The scenery and some visuals are nicely animated, and the song itself is pretty good. Afterwards, she leaves after hearing some drums, and John is now falling for her.
I think we all know where.
As the Brits are setting up their own fort, Ratcliffe continues theorizing how to get gold, and figures out the easiest solution. Taking it from them by force. Some Brits go out searching for John, and we get greeted with more unnecessary Tom and Jerry antics with Miko and Percy. In a cornfield, Pocahontas is advised by her father to stay around. John meets her inside, and Pocahontas asks her friend to cover for her. John asks where people are hiding their gold, but it turns out that they don't have any, but gets introduced to corn instead. Yay! He then discusses about staying in the New World and meets the talking tree, who trips and spooks the Brits finding John to stole them. John leaves and plans to meet with her again, with Pocahontas now feeling that John is the person she'll likely end up with. The brother tribe finally arrived to discuss how to fend off the white men. While Miko and Percy cartoon later, John heads back to the fort and shows his crew corn, also discussing how he met one of the indigenous people. Ratcliffe plans to go into war with them and threatens John by hanging him. Pocahontas heads back out, and her friend is now tired of stalling her all the time, and warns her of betraying her tribe. And so does John, with Thomas soon following under Ratcliffe's instructions. The two finally meet again, and even kiss, but Kocoum and Thomas find out, with Kocoum coming in to take on John. But Thomas lives long enough to see himself become the villain by shooting Kocoum.
Oh no! A character who barely had 5 minutes worth of screen time! Woe is me!
Thomas makes a run for it, with John taking the blame, being sentenced to death by the indigenous people. This then leads Miko and Percy to make a truce.
This may sound like a crazy theory, so hear me out. I think I know why Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin work so well. It's just because those stories are based off fairy tales and folklore. I don't think that same formula carries over as well with real-life history.
And to make matters worse, none of this actually happened, as John and Pocahontas were never into each other. And that's especially good because Pocahontas was only 10 years old when John arrived at the New World. Thank God history isn't that screwed up. Pocahontas talks to John one last time, wishing they never met, but John is grateful he did. Back at the fort, Ratcliffe rallies up everyone to attack saving John, whereas the indigenous people prepare to execute John, with both sides singing about them being savages. Pocahontas then seeks guidance from the tree, and uses a compass to follow her destiny to save John. At dawn, the Brits head out to war, as the indigenous people begin the execution. Pocahontas then rushes out and, hold on, where the hell did you come from? Like she just appeared in the crowd! So much for continuity. Anyhow, she comes in the nick of time to stop the execution and convince her father to spare John. Ratcliffe accidentally shoots John when trying to kill Pocahontas' father, which then leads the Brits to overthrow him and make peace with the indigenous people. The Brits prepare to leave the New World, with John also returning to recover. Miku and Percy stay, Pocahontas and John bid farewell to each other, and as the ship leaves, Pocahontas brings it the wind to wish them a good journey home. Now, I didn't think this movie would be as horrendous as everyone said it was. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still pretty bad. The scenery is nicely animated, and Colors of the Wind is a good song for sure, but it might as well be hospitalized after carrying this movie. The story is dull, lame, and uninteresting. The characters are less expressive than my G.I. Joe figure, despite one of the directors being the genie's lead animator. The songs are far from Disney's greatest. Pocahontas herself doesn't lend itself to the Disney formula all too well. And that's not even bringing out the at best debatable cultural depictions and near non-existent historical accuracy. It could have been a hell of a lot worse, but still. I reckon this is where the success of the Renaissance went over Disney's head. Which only makes the Lion King's success that much funnier. And with that, I can see as to why it's hailed as the black sheep of the Renaissance. Which is impressive. Next, the Hunchback of Notre Dame. We start with the shots of the cathedral in the sky, before heading to the ground where we meet a jester named Copeland telling the children a story about a mysterious bell ringer, leading to a flashback of some gypsies trying to escape Paris, with Frollo pursuing a woman holding a baby, and as they make it to Notre Dame, Frollo takes the baby from her, killing the woman on the steps. And as Frollo finds out the baby's deformed, he heads to a well ready to drop him in. Damn, it may have taken Scar a good portion of the Lion King to kill somebody, but this guy does that and attempts killing a child in the first 4 minutes. This movie ain't horsing around. An archdeacon comes in to stop Frollo, scolding him for murdering the mother right outside the cathedral, and because Frollo is a loyal Ned Flanders, he raises the child, calling him Quasimodo, whilst hiding him within the bell towers of Notre Dame. We cut back to Copeland, now leading us to the towers with Quasimodo ringing the bells. We meet the Hunchback, and it turns out that he's a cool, friendly guy, and also meet his gargoyle friends, led by Hugo, voiced by Jason Alexander of George Costanza fame. I had to say, they nailed Quasimodo's design. He is deformed, but has enough appeal to resonate and sympathize with the audience, and also look better than my prom photos. A festival is about to take place below, and the gargoyles tempt Quasi to go down, but Frollo pops by warning him about the dangers of the outside world, and that he's better off with his Notre Dame playset. Quasi roams around the cathedral, singing about how he wants to go down there with some stunning animation. A captain named Phoebus comes to town, and after meeting a gypsy girl named Esmeralda and her pet goat, meets up with Frollo at the Palace of Justice to discuss taking care of wiping out the gypsies in Paris. The topsy-turvy festival begins with Quasi heading down disguised. He briefly meets Esmeralda performing, and once his cover is blown, everyone crowns Quasi as the king of the festival, with everyone cheering him, making Quasi feel happy, and you'd think this is where things end. It's done, right? But then you realize that there's 65 minutes left of this movie, so a guardsman then throws a tomato on him, with everyone following, humiliating him, and Frollo doing nothing to teach him a lesson. You really sympathize with Quasi here, as he didn't do anything wrong alongside the sudden whiplash from his happiness. Esmeralda puts a stop to everything, leading her to face off against the guards. Frollo also witnesses her magic tricks as witchcraft, shocking him. Afterwards, Quasi feels ridiculed, heading back up to the tower, locking himself, whilst Esmeralda sneaks into the cathedral. She then meets up with Phoebus and start to get to know each other. As Frollo catches up and tells Phoebus to arrest her, the Archdeacon gives Esmeralda sanctuary in the cathedral. Frollo warns her about capturing her outside, leaving Esmeralda trapped and singing for help. She then makes it up to the bell tower and befriends Quasimodo, who shows her around his place and helping her escape Notre Dame without anyone suspecting, and giving him a necklace showing where she and other gypsies live. Phoebus pops by asking about Esmeralda, surprising Quasi, but assures him he means no harm to him, and in fact, tells him he's a good friend of Esmeralda. The gargoyles assure him that Esmeralda loves him, but Quasi tells him that he realistically wouldn't be with her, and sings that he now at least has a friend. Meanwhile, Frollo sings about his lust for the gypsy with one of the most powerful and effective songs in a Disney movie, Hellfire. How this movie got away with a G rating is beyond me. It perfectly captures not only the grand artistry of this film, but also how irredeemably evil Frollo truly is, wanting Esmeralda for himself, or to kill her otherwise. Yet turning red discussing periods is pushing things too far.
I I can't let Kirby and Jigglypuff watch this! That's better.
During his song, a guardsman notifies him that Esmeralda escaped, naturally leading him to find her by arresting random gypsies and burning down windmills with innocent people inside. Gee, Froloops! No Disney villain before or after can compare to this guy's despicable nature. During this, Phoebus becomes disturbed by his motivations and saves the people inside the windmill, standing up against Frollo. Whilst escaping on his horse, Phoebus gets shot and falls into a river, with Esmeralda coming in to save him. The whole city is then on fire, and back at Notre Dame, the gargoyles reassure Quasi that Esmeralda likes him, and sing about it via A Guy Like You. Though the song itself is fine, I will agree with many others that it shouldn't have played at this crucial part of the film. Besides, didn't Quasi say that he wouldn't end up with her earlier on? Shouldn't the song have triggered around then? And yet here, you're singing, the whole city's ablaze and you're singing. With this being such a jarring whiplash in terms of toning, my personal diagnosis would be to either have it play earlier in the film, or take it out entirely.
You know, we're living in a society. We're supposed to act in a civilized way.
Anyhow, the song somehow changes Quasimodo's mind, and his crush pops by to let Phoebus recover and hide in the bell tower, but is heartbroken to see Esmeralda kissing Phoebus.
Disgusting!
Which further renders the whole A Guy Like You sequence pointless. Anyhow, Frollo pops by to play the blaming game with the Hunchback for helping Esmeralda escape, destroying his playset, which might be the most evil thing he's done in this whole movie, assuring him that he'll attack the gypsies' hideout. Phoebus and Quasi then go to find the hideout, only to be captured by the gypsies, who prepare to execute them. Esmeralda assures him that they mean no harm, but Frollo finds them and captures everyone. At dawn, he plans to execute Esmeralda by burning her on a stake, whilst everyone else are caged and Quasimodo is chained up at the bell tower. Frollo gives Esmeralda one last chance to live, asking her out, but it turns out that murderous monsters aren't her type, so he begins burning the stake. This makes Quasimodo eventually break his chains and head down to rescue the gypsy, declaring sanctuary in the cathedral. He climbs back up with stellar hybrid animation, and then hides her. Phoebus then leads everyone to fight back against everyone, with the gargoyles even pouring boiling lava down.
You do realize that some people down there are on your side, right?
Back at the bell tower, Quasi doesn't feel a pulse from Esmeralda, with Frollo heading out to finish the job. Quasi takes Esmeralda with him while standing up against his master. The cathedral then starts to catch fire, and standing on the ledge preparing to take care of both the Hunchback and Gypsy once and for all, Frollo falls and a ledge he's holding breaks, sending him to the flaming depths of hell. Quasi lets Phoebus and Esmeralda be together, and the town finally accepts the Hunchback, as Quasimodo is now friends with everyone in Paris. Really glad these films are great again after whatever the hell Pocahontas was. Beautiful animation, rich mature themes, lovable characters, alongside the most evil and expertly crafted villain in the whole Disney canon, rivaling Scar of all people. Brilliant songs, effective storytelling subversions, and the grandiose art direction is a spectacle to see. In terms of toning, yeah, this movie's a mess, but I'm not as fussed about the gargoyles as other people are, and I'm personally grateful Taika Waititi didn't make this movie. So watch this film now and savor it, cause I don't think we'll see Disney go this hard ever again. Hercules now, and we start in a temple where some gospel singers tell us about the legendary god Zeus and his accomplishments of the titans he defeated, before heading to Olympus where we see multiple Greek gods hang out, celebrating the birth of Zeus and Hera's son, Hercules. Zeus also creates a pet horse named Pegasus for him, and Hades, runner of the underworld, pops by, only to get humiliated by Zeus and the other gods. Back in the underworld, he meets up with the Fates to discuss his plans that when the planets line up, the Titans Zeus previously defeated rise up to Olympus to finish off Zeus and have Hades rule everything, unless Hercules defeats him. Wanting him out of his plan, he sends out his minions Pain and Panic to steal the child from Olympus and strip him from his immortality and strength. They do so, and Hercules becomes immortal, but still keeps his strength. While Zeus is heartbroken in Olympus, some farmers on Earth find the lost child and take him in to raise. As he grows up, Hercules realizes that he doesn't exactly fit in with everyone after destroying a town. His parents reveal to him about where he really came from, and from looking at a medal from Olympus, Hercules heads out to find his origin in the song Go the Distance. After tracking the land, he reaches the Temple of Zeus, where a statue of the god comes to life, and he tells his son to become a legend, and only then he'll be ready to return to Olympus. Zeus also brings down Pegasus for Hercules to go along with as they head out to an island to find a trainer. He meets Phil, voiced by Danny DeVito, a perfect casting choice if I've ever seen one, and Herc constantly asks to be trained by him, despite Phil feeling disappointed about prior heroes he trained because of their weaknesses. He soon agrees to do so in a montage of Hercules growing and getting stronger, whilst also learning about what to do in certain situations. Now that he's ready to become a hero, they make their way to the city of Thebes to prove himself. On the way, Herc stumbles across a damsel in distress caught up with the river guardian. Herc comes in to save her, whilst also fumbling against it much to Phil's embarrassment, but he defeats the river guardian and gets acquainted with the damsel Meg, who turns out to be working for Hades, after she lost somebody she loved, tempting her to strike a deal with him. I could think of worse guys to make sketchy deals with. This then makes Hades find out that Pain and Panic failed to weaken Hercules all those years ago, leading him to scheme another plan to defeat him. Hercules, Phil, and Pegasus all then make it to the city of Thebes to prove himself a hero. Meg then alerts Herc about some trapped kids, who are actually Pain and Panic in disguise. He goes in to save them, only to face off against the Hydra with multiple heads, ultimately defeating it and becoming a hero to the city of Thebes, even impressing Meg. The gospel singers go hard singing about Hercules' feats and triumphs as a hero, whilst also being a huge famous celebrity, having countless merchandise and drinks based off him, which even Pain and Panic pick up. Poetic. Hades then encourages Meg to find Hercules' weakness, despite learning her lesson of love the hard way. Herc pops over to Zeus and asks if he's ready to go back after his accomplishments, but is told to make a feat that will make him a true hero, and only then he can return. In his mansion, Herc is now living the high life, whilst also wearing the skin of a certain line, fulfilling a random line the Mr. Beanbird said 3 films prior.
He'd make a very handsome throw rug.
Zazu.
And just think, whenever he gets dirty, you could take him out and beat him.
Meg pops over to ask out Hercules despite his busy schedule, and they go out and have a good time together, with Herc falling for Meg, and Meg now falling for him despite being conflicted from her past, in a less extreme version of Hellfire if I've ever seen one. Phil then finds out about Meg's shady truth with Hades, even though she's through with him, with Hades now finding out that she is Herc's weakness. Phil tries to warn Herc about Meg, but doesn't listen to him, whilst Pegasus gets trapped by Pain and Panic. Hades pops by to persuade Herc to take the day off and take his strength in exchange for keeping everyone around him safe, including Meg. He agrees and becomes weak. Again, I could think of worse guys to make sketchy deals with. Hades frees Meg and reveals to Herc that Phil was right about her. As the planets finally align, Hades frees the Titans, now making their way to destroy Olympus. The gods in Olympus prepare to fend them off, but lose with Hades now ruling. As if things weren't bad enough, a giant Cyclops happens to stroll by the city of Thebes, destroying it, with Herc attempting but failing to stop it, which then leads Meg to free Pegasus and head out to Phil and convince him to come back. They do so and encourage him to fight back by tangling up the Cyclops, who falls down, leading Meg to be crushed by a pillar.
Caesar!
Herc lifts the pillar, saving her, gaining back his strength, and heads out to Olympus to free the gods and help them fend off Hades and the Titans. But back on Earth, things aren't looking good for Meg, as the Fates unfortunately cut her string of life. Hercules comes back too late, and personally heads down to the underworld to save her.
If you come across this guy trying to escape the underworld, tell him I said hi.
Herc then dives into a river of lost souls to retrieve Meg, and just as the Fates are about to cut his string, he becomes immortal and finally becomes a god and true hero for his selfless actions saving Meg, and defeats Hades punching him into the river. Meg lives again, and Hercules is now invited back to Olympus, meeting up with all the gods, but decides to stay mortal on Earth to be with Meg, and is now hailed as a star. Hey, with that Kratos guy out and about, that's a pretty smart call. This was a really fun one to watch. Exciting action, incredible animation, James Woods as Hades and Danny DeVito as Phil were a blast, and the rest of the characters I also really liked, the soundtrack slaps, and most of all, it's got a good heart. Yeah, I do think the big three are still the best of this era, but to be honest, this film isn't that far off. So with that, Hercules is an extremely energetic and entertaining film I can watch any day of the week. Mulan is next up, and wow, we're already into some action, as at the Great Wall of China, the Huns make it up and across the country with their leader Shan Yu, leading China to declare war on them. In a peaceful small town, a girl named Fa Mulan is sent to test if she can be a worthy and honorable wife for a future husband.
Just in case.
She fails miserably and begins questioning herself and goals in life with a nice song. The town gets news from the army that they're recruiting one man from each family to go to war, with Mulan's father volunteering despite his old age, understandably making Mulan concerned. She tries to talk him out of it, but won't listen to her. Later at night, she takes her father's sword and warrior suit, cuts her hair short, and heads out to war in his horse with surprisingly kick-ass music playing throughout.
I look like a total jackass now, don't I? I am so sorry I ever doubted you.
Her family quickly finds out that she ran off, and the grandmother calls upon her family's guardians to look out for her, with a dragon named Mushu, voiced by Eddie Murphy, being sent out by the guardians to call out another dragon statue to look after Mulan, but accidentally breaks the statue and goes himself whilst also breaking a cricket. Just outside the camp, Mushu introduces himself to Mulan, who's preparing to enter disguise, with Mushu now being her Jiminy Cricket. Over there, a captain named Li Shang is instructed by his father to train his army as he heads out with his to fight the Huns via the Tangshan Pass. Mulan comes in disguised as Ping, making a rough first impression with the soldiers as everyone begins their training through a song montage. During this, Mulan struggles to keep up with the other soldiers getting stronger, whilst keeping her identity secret. When told by Shang to go home, she finally proves herself worthy to everyone by reaching an arrow stuck on a tall pole, as everyone is now ready to fight the Huns. Meanwhile, the Huns realize that the army led by Shang's father are nearby waiting and plan to take them on themselves. One fast scene later, Mulan and Mushu overhear Shang being told by a counselor his army isn't ready for battle despite completing their training, leading Mushu to write a letter saying that the general needs Shang's army at the front. The army make their way across the country, even singing about the girls they'd fight for. But as they reach the Tangshan Pass, the songs stop as they're unfortunately greeted by the horrors of war, where the Huns already got to and killed everyone there, including Shang's father. They mourn their lost men briefly before they continue their trek heading out into the snowy mountains. Mushu accidentally fires a rocket, giving away their presence towards the Huns, who come down to attack the army. Ping then launches a rocket directly in the snow, causing an avalanche to trap the Huns in, with Shang's army and Ping barely surviving. Ping is considered one of Shang's best in line, but is unfortunately hit. When giving Ping medical attention, they soon discover that Ping's a girl! Because of this revelation, Shang and his men continue without Mulan, feeling that she dishonored her family. When feeling down in the dumps with Mushu, Mulan then finds out that the Huns are still alive and head to the Emperor's palace at the center of China to warn everybody during a celebration of their victory. Shang and his men don't believe her, which is inconvenient because Shan Yu and the Huns are also there, who then ambush the celebration and kidnap the Emperor. Mulan and some soldiers disguise themselves and climb out the palace. As Shan Yu tells the Emperor to bow down to him, Mulan, the soldiers, and Mushu take out the guards while Shang heads out to face Shan Yu. The soldiers take the Emperor to safety as Mulan takes on Shan Yu. They fight on the rooftops before she finishes off Shan Yu by throwing him into a bunch of fireworks set up by Mushu exploding him, with Mulan narrowly escaping.
Pretty.
The whole country kneels down to Mulan for defeating Shan Yu despite her prior actions, with the Emperor giving her not only a medal, but also Shan Yu's sword. She makes it back home to her family, and her father couldn't be more proud of his daughter. Shang also pops by for dinner after getting advice from the Emperor, and Mushu becomes a guardian for Mulan's family again, leading to a dance party. And that's it. That's the movie. It doesn't really end. It just kind of stops. Another good one. Mulan's journey was satisfying to see unfold. It broke traditional Disney princess stereotypes to great success. Eddie Murphy was fun as Mushu, even if I do prefer him as Donkey in the Shrek movies. The songs are great, especially Reflection and I'll Make a Man Out of You. Nice stylized animation with the effects, and some gorgeous calligraphy sequences, and exciting action set pieces. Though the soldiers felt a bit too after-school special for my liking, and I do wish we got to see more of the Hun serving as a threat towards the plot, and that the film has an actual ending, Mulan is an honorable addition to the Disney animated canon. Now for the last film of this era, Tarzan. And already it's starting strong with a man, woman, and baby all narrowly escaping a burning ship, heading to a nearby island, and setting up a new life and home. Meanwhile, we also see some gorillas hanging out, and one night, a baby gorilla heads out, only to be killed by a leopard, leaving the mother Kala devastated, and father Kerchak to lead the gorillas to find somewhere else to live, as Kala then hears a baby cry in the treehouse, only to discover two people dead and a baby she takes in to raise after facing off against a leopard that killed the parents and her son.
Man, this movie is way darker than I remember.
I can't let Kirby and Jigglypuff watch this.
There we go.
Kerchak is thrown off by the human, but Kala still keeps him regardless. I don't blame you, Kerchak. We live in a society. Time passes as Tarzan tries to prove himself to the gorillas by being tasked by his friend Turk to grab an elephant's hair. We also see a baby elephant named Tantor who spots him, and when grabbing a hair, the elephants then run off, causing a ruckus in the jungle, further disappointing Kerchak. When alone, Tarzan admits that he'll never fit in, but Kala comes to comfort him. Tarzan grows up in a seamless sequence with 3D elements thanks to a technique called Deep Canvas, and takes on the leopard with him killing it, impressing the apes except for, surprise surprise, Kerchak. They then hear gunshots nearby, with the gorillas heading out away from the noise, whilst Tarzan goes out to investigate where it came from. We meet some explorers with Jane and her father, alongside the film's villain Clayton, leading the expedition. Jane encounters a monkey, who takes her pad and drawing of gorillas, only to be chased by a group of baboons, with Tarzan coming in to save her. The two then get to know each other, with Tarzan now being curious with Jane, another human being in the jungle. The gorillas and Tantor, now voiced by Wayne Knight,
Hello, Newman.
come across the explorer's campsite and play around with what's there in song. Tarzan and Jane show up, with Jane witnessing him communicating with his gorilla friends. Kerchak shows up and is surprised to see humans around here and instructs his pack to leave. Clayton and Jane's father make it back, with Jane explaining to everyone about her encounter with Tarzan, making Clayton intrigued by his relation to the gorillas. Kerchak advises the gorillas to avoid the humans, with Tarzan standing up to him and asking to get them a chance. He adds to the humans and learns about English language and their culture, with Jane learning about him and his world, and Clayton asking him about the gorillas, whilst Phil Collins uses 3% of his musical power during the sequence. And I quite like how they went about with the musical numbers in this film. It's a good breather from the characters just singing. Here, it's kinda like he's narrating the story to us. They then ask about the gorillas, but Tarzan doesn't want to take them to them. Tarzan also develops interest in Jane, and as he prepares to confess his feelings, a ship comes by to pick the explorers up. Jane offers Tarzan to come with them to England and stay there, just before he brings them to see the gorillas, wanting Jane to stay, whilst Turk and Tantor stall Kerchak. This makes them, including Kala, intimidated at first, before befriending them. Kerchak finds out, and Tarzan defends the humans by attacking him, making the gorillas feel betrayed. Kala finally reveals the truth of his origins, taking him to the treehouse she found him in. Tarzan dresses up for the next GQ issue as he makes an emotional farewell to his mother and sets out to leave for England the next day. But it turns out that it was all a trap by Clayton as he heads out to capture the gorillas. Though it seems like all hope is lost for Tarzan and Jane, Turk and Tantor come in to bust everyone out of the boat and save the gorillas from Clayton and the crewmates. They make it in time to free everyone, leading Clayton to take on Tarzan while shooting Kerchak in the process. Up in the trees, Tarzan breaks Clayton's gun, causing him to swing his knife across the vines, waving his arms in the air like he just doesn't care. Unfortunately, due to his recklessness, the vines surround his neck, and once he runs out of vines to hold onto, he falls down and we see a silhouette of Clayton's hanging corpse. Damn. This scene always went over my head as a kid, but when watching it now, I can't help but tip my hat to it. Much like Hunchback earlier, it astounds me how this movie got away with a G rating. Tarzan heads to Kerchak to comfort him in his final moments, who now makes Tarzan the leader of the pack before passing on. Jane and her father then prepare to leave for England, but ultimately decide to stay in the jungle with Tarzan, living the rest of their days rejecting humanity and embracing Monkey. This was the perfect send-off to this era, and is the embodiment of what made the Renaissance so strong. The animation is as breathtaking as ever, alongside the deep canvas technique being a technical marvel, like how was this film made a quarter of a century ago? The darker elements perfectly fit the film's tone and makes it feel more mature and intriguing compared to other Disney movies. You hear me, Black Cauldron? Fun characters, exciting sequences, and Phil Collins going incredibly hard with the soundtrack when he didn't need to. Though Rosie O'Donnell as Turk might not be mankind's most favorite thing in the world, and that there could have been more development between Tarzan and Kerchak just so Kerchak's death would have, meant something, Tarzan ended the Renaissance on one hell of a high note.
And that was the Disney Renaissance, and I can confidently say that this was just the string of films Disney needed. They took what made their films so beloved and modernized it, alongside adding in new elements and risks hardly seen in animation before, or even after in some cases, enhancing their film's appeal to multiple new audiences and redefining the animated feature-length film we know today. And putting aside one misfire, this might be the greatest era of the entire Walt Disney animated canon. And unfortunately, what goes up must come down, as up next, we got the era with Chicken Little in it. I am just as excited as you are. If I had to rank all 8 films from worst to best, it would be Pocahontas, Mulan, The Hunchback of Notre, Tarzan, Hercules, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King. Have you seen any of these films, and if you did, what you think of them? Let me know down below, and with that, thanks for watching.